Today we're going to learn about parallel lines and transversals, and we're going to start off with some new vocabulary. So let's start off with the word parallel, and we say two lines are parallel if they never cross each other. They run right next to each other, and no matter how far you go, they never cross. So we're going to use this symbol to mean parallel. It looks like two vertical lines. It looks almost like the number 11, but squished close together. And we'll draw arrows, which I'll show you in just a sec. So here's an example of two parallel lines. We have line AB on top, and we have line CD below it, and they're both running right next to each other. So no matter how far we extend it, those two lines will never cross. That's what parallel means. Now, if you look at the notation down here, this right here, this is a notation we learned earlier. It means line AB, because it's the letters AB with a line above it. Now, the next symbol is the one that means parallel. This is our new symbol. This means is parallel to. And then this last one is just like our first one. This means line CD. So what that says in notation is line AB is parallel to line CD. Now, the other way I can show this is what I said up here about drawing arrows. If I take two lines in a picture and I draw a little arrow on each one like this, that's another notation that means the lines are parallel. So if you ever see a picture that has two lines and the lines have those two little arrows in the middle of them, that also means the lines are parallel. So here's our next vocab word for today, transversal. To transverse something means to cross it. So a transversal is a line that crosses other lines, and it can be two or more. Now, the reason this is important, the reason we learn these two things together, whenever you have parallel lines and a third line crossing over them, a transversal, it creates special angle pairs, and that's what we want to learn today. So here's a picture of exactly what we just talked about. We're going to say these two lines are parallel, and then you have that third diagonal line crossing through like this. We call it the transversal. And I numbered all the angles in the picture 1 through 8 so we can talk about them real easy. And the first angle pair I want to talk about is something called corresponding angles. Now, to understand corresponding angles, I want you guys to notice that what we really have in this picture is two sets of 4 angles. I have 4 angles up here, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I basically have a copy, the same 4 angles down here, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, corresponding angles means you pick one angle from each group of 4, and it's the same one, like in the same spot. So you could kind of think of it in this picture, I might think of it like you have a top right angle, and a top left, and a bottom right and a bottom left. So in the notes, the example I gave you was angle 1 and angle 5. So I said angle 1 right here, and angle 5 right here. Those are called corresponding angles because it's the same one from each group of 4. It's basically the top left angle. I could have also said angle 2 and angle 6. Those are corresponding angles because that's the top right. I could have said angle 3 and angle 7. Or one more, this is the last one, angle 4 and angle 8. So we have 4 sets of corresponding angles. Just think of the big red circles. We have 2 sets of 4 angles. If I pick the same angle, the same position from each set of 4, those are what we call corresponding angles. All right, our next vocabulary phrase is alternate interior angles. So these are ones that are on the opposite side of the transversal and in between the parallel lines. So each word means something. Alternate means opposite side of the transversal. So if you look at the transversal going down the middle there, on one side you have angles 1, 3, 5, and 7, and on the other side you have angles 2, 4, 6, and 8. So alternate means I'm going to pick one of each, one from one side and one the other. Now interior is talking about the parallel lines. Interior means in here. This is the interior. in between the two lines. So I want two angles that are in between the two parallel lines and one from each side of the transversal. So the example I gave you for the notes was 3 and 6. One from each side of the transversal and both on the inside or interior of the parallel lines. The other example I could have used, 4 and 5. Those are your two sets of alternate interior angles. Okay, next we have alternate exterior angles. Now, alternate means the same thing. Exterior means the opposite of interior. So this time, instead of two angles in between the parallel lines, we want two angles on the outside of the parallel lines. But we still want them to alternate. We want one from each side of the line. So the example I gave you for the notes was 1 and 8. One from each side of the transversal, but this time they are exterior. They're on the outside of the two parallel lines. And the other example I could have used, 2 and 7. Okay. The next thing we have is same side interior angles. Now we already know what interior means. Interior means between the lines. This time, instead of alternate, one on each side of the transversal, we want them both on the same side. So if I want to be in between the lines and on the same side of the transversal, one possibility, which I typed into the notes, is 3 and 5. Same side of the transversal, interior of the parallel lines. The other possibility would be 4 and 6. Okay, last one, and if you've figured out the pattern, you can see what we're doing here. This time we have same side exterior. So we want to be on the same side of the transversal, but this time we want to be on the outside of the parallel lines. And the ones I typed in were 2 and 8. That's the same side of the transversal, but it's on the outside of the parallel lines. And then the other possibility here would have been 1 and 7. Same side of the transversal, but on the outside or the exterior. So here's a good summary for you guys. When you're talking about the transversal, the one line that crosses over the parallel lines, you're either going to be talking about alternate angles, which means one from each side of that line, or same side, which is exactly what it says, two angles that are on the same side of that line. Now, when you're talking about the parallel lines, it's either going to be interior, in between the two, or it's going to be exterior, outside of the two. And as long as you understand those 4 words, it's some combination of those. It's one of each, basically. It might be alternate interior or alternate exterior. It might be same side interior or same side exterior. If you know what all the 4 words mean separately, it's easy to know all the terms. So we're going to learn between today and part 2 for these notes, we're going to learn a theorem or a postulate, basically a math rule about each type of angle. Now we're going to do one today and then the rest in part 2. So here's the only math rule that I'm going to teach you guys for today. And it's about corresponding angles. And it says whenever a transversal crosses 2 parallel lines, all corresponding angles are equal. Now, that means if you combine it with what we learned before about vertical angles and linear pairs, you could find every angle in one of these pictures. So let me make one up real quick. Let me draw, let's say these are parallel lines. Here's one line. Here's another line. And I'll mark them parallel. Remember, we use these little arrows to show that they're parallel. So I have 2 parallel lines, and I'll say that this is my transversal. That's my line that crosses both of them. So let's say I told you that this angle right here was 100 degrees. You guys could now very easily figure out every angle in this picture if you use what I've told you so far. So first of all, I could start off, let's say I wanted to find this angle right here, right next to it. I could say, well, that makes a linear pair, and linear pairs add up to 180. So if this angle is 100, then the one right next to it must be 80. I'm using the top parallel line, this one here, as my line for the linear pair. Now once you have those two, remember vertical angles are equal. So if you have two lines making an X, the one opposite is equal, and I can use those two. So I can say if this top angle is 100, so is that one, because that's a vertical angle. And if this angle over here on the left side is 80, so is the one on the right. So I really quickly and easily used vertical angles and linear pairs to find the other three angles in my one group of four. Now, we just learned that corresponding angles are equal. So basically, once you have one full group of four, you can just copy those numbers over to the other one. So that means this one is exactly the same. I'll switch colors to make it stand out. But this one is also 100, 80, 100 again, 80 again. Because this set of four right here will always match this set of four right here. And that's our postulate or our rule for today. All right, what we're going to do for the assignment today is focus mainly on the vocabulary. And then tomorrow we're going to learn more rules, or part two, we're going to learn more rules about things like alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and all the other types.